Well, the Golden State Warriors continue their vitally important 5-game road trip as the postseason begins to take shape. Time's running out. The urgency is there. I have Ryan Leong joining me. He's been covering the Warriors for decades as part of AP Radio, and we're going to talk Warriors. We're going to talk Steve Kerr. We're going to talk about, what's going on and why they're just a horrible team on the road, or maybe that Clippers game was a sign that they turned things around. We'll discuss that and so much more next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM, and more specifically, Ultimate Basketball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing your basketball franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebasketballgm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On. Make sure it's all caps in the game. You can follow Ryan Leong, AP sports reporter for AP Radio. More specifically, he's been covering sports for decades in the Bay Area. Pleasure to finally have him on the show. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Leong. Leong is how you spell his last name. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. Ryan, how the heck are you, man? I'm glad to finally have you on the show. And look, there aren't that many games left. The Warriors right now are 6th in the standings. 12 games remain in the regular season, 7 on the road, 5 at home. In your opinion, man, how are the Warriors doing to you? And what do you see happening these final 12 games?
I would say right now I'd give them a grade of B-. First of all, thanks for having me on, Cyrus.
Yeah,
Great
man.
to talk to you in this forum after all these years that we've known each other.
Yeah.
I've actually been covering the Warriors going back to Raymond Ritter's first year. Raymond Ritter, of course, the famed Warriors PR guy. So the 98-99 truncated season was my first year covering the Warriors. So I go way back. Okay, I go back to like the Von Kegel Cummings, Antoine Jameson days. And most of your listeners will be like, who the heck are those guys?
I remember them clearly. Absolutely. Yeah. The good old dark days when the Warriors were an afterthought in the Bay Area and beyond.
Yeah. So when people worry about people are hitting the panic button, freaking out that the Warriors stink. No, those Warriors stunk, but they were hardcore type players though. They were gritty, but they just weren't very good, unfortunately.
Right. And they were horrible. And people sometimes ask me, this always comes from like younger fans. They're always like, man, why do you get so excited about the Warriors? I've been accused in the past, not this year because the Warriors haven't been that good, but in the past of being maybe arrogant about them. And my response always is, I'm old. Like, I remember this team being awful for decades. They were the butt of jokes in the NBA. They were horrible. There was no positive spin and to put on them. And the fact that they're a dynasty now is just absolutely incredible. I want to play this soundbite because you're in the interview room for almost every home game. And my former employer, KNBR, actually tweeted this out. I'm glad I saw this. I think you retweeted it. Steve Kerr answering a question from you. And he was answering a question more specifically about the disparity of the team between home games and road games. It is record setting, especially when it comes to defense, where they're giving on, I think 111 points and change at home. And then it's 124 and change on the road. The disparity is drastic. It's stark. Here is Steve Kerr answering your question about that a few days ago.
Obviously, you guys know how well you played at home versus how you guys have played on the road. Have you ever been part of a team that's been like that, where you guys have had that kind of disparity? Or
Never. And it's I've been on teams that sucked at home and on the road. Yeah, but nothing like this. I think the biggest thing when you look at the numbers is the 3-point field goal percentage defense at home is dramatically better than it is at home. Than it is on the road. So the answer lies in our defense, no matter how you want to look at it. And you can question, why are teams shooting so much better on their home floor? It doesn't matter why. We have to address that, and we have to get better defensively on the road if we're going to break that habit.
Yeah, and this was before the Clippers game. They obviously did not fix that. The Clippers lit them up, for more specifically, scoring 134 points on them. And when you look at the quarter breakdown, the Clippers scored 33 in the second, 38 in the third, 35 in the fourth. Abysmal defense. Ryan, what do you think is going on here with the Warriors at home, where they're still playing efficient world championship level basketball, and then on the road when they look like the Warriors from our early days working?
Like Kerr, he's like a fortune teller. He talked about what the Warriors' problems are on the road, and they go out and they lay that exact egg that he wanted to avoid. Despite a great game by Steph Curry, and I mean great. I would have to look up the stats. I didn't get a chance to, as far as like what's his best ever quarter. Now he scored 21 of his 50 points in that third quarter. So that's just amazing how well he's played.
Yeah.
And it goes for naught because, like you said, you gave up the percentages there. And if you look at that box score, what was it? The Warriors gave up 16 threes. They made 17 themselves, but they got out rebounded by a margin of 8, right? 44 to 36.
Correct.
And they
Correct.
gave up 16 turnovers leading to 20 points. I mean, that's a recipe for a loss right there. And that's what they did. And they continue to do that. The Warriors, they just don't play very focused. I mean, they play kind of like the way they did when they were good in their championship years. There was a lot of times I remember where the Warriors would kind of basically just kind of goof off, and then they get serious in the third quarter and run teams off the floor. Now they're still kind of doing that at home, but these road games, I mean, again, Curry is single-handedly keeping these teams in the game, his team in the game. And the problem is, as you know, he's pretty fragile. So I always worry when he goes into the lane, what's going to happen to him, because he could have a knee contusion. He could have a shoulder issue, which is what he's had both those injuries this year. And you just get a little bit worried every time he has to make a move or do something that involves more than just him shooting a three.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. And one word you use there, which I think is nailing it on the head, is focus. This is not a focused team when they're on the road. My compadre for the other show I do, Hall of Famer Rick Barry, he is citing that as the primary reason that the team is struggling so bad on the road, is they have a lack of focus. Steve Kerr actually riled some people up last night at the post-game press conference because he actually felt positively about the Warriors after that game, despite the fact that the defense gave up 134. And the reason was he thought he saw that focus. He saw that effort. And I actually agree with him to a certain extent. I did think the Warriors were much more engaged than they have been for a lot of other road games. I also just think that the Clippers were that good of a team, where like if the Warriors play like that tomorrow against Atlanta, I think they're going to win that game. Do you agree, or do you think differently?
No, I agree with you. I mean, I don't remember Atlanta's roster too. Obviously, of course, Trae Young is being their star player. But when you look at the Clippers and you see who's on their roster, and they really struggled since they acquired Russell Westbrook. I don't remember what their exact record is, but I mean, you got an all-star roster for the Clippers, and they really haven't performed, and they did so in this game, and they need more of that. And if you look at the bench points, I mean, look at the bench points also in the box score yesterday. I mean, the only guy that had double figures for the Warriors was Jordan Poole, whereas the Clippers had Eric Gordon, who also, I mean, I think was a 16 points. I think he scored all those 16 in that third quarter, or was it fourth quarter, I believe, right? No, it was also third quarter. He scored 16 of his points in the third quarter to try to match Curry's 21. And you had Terrence Mann score 17 off the bench for the Clippers. I mean, if the Warriors just aren't clicking and the other team is, I mean, and the Clippers are supposed to be the better team anyway on paper. So you kind of give the edge to the Clippers here. The problem, of course, with the Warriors is if they had some more road wins by this point, then you probably would just look at this as this loss is not a big deal, just a hard-fought game. But when the Warriors haven't won a road game since the end of January, it becomes a must-win game. And this is a must-win, road trip the rest of the way forward. I don't know if the Warriors can win the next 4, but it'd be nice if they could.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Jill Espina writes in the chat, we're doing a live show here, super last minute, criticizing Steve Kerr, saying that Mike Brown was largely responsible for that defense. I've heard a lot of people echo those sentiments. Ryan, you've been around this team for a long time, man, and you're at every press conference. I've had other insiders tell me when Mike Brown had first left. This was after last season when we all found out he was going to the Kings. I had a lot of insiders tell me that Mike Brown was responsible for a lot of the schematics. He was one of the hardest working people on the staff. In your opinion, do you agree with that sentiment that Mike Brown's absence is playing a part in all this?
Oh, no question. I mean, it's almost like an NFL team that does really well, right? Like, I mean, I know this is not a 49ers podcast, but when you look at the Niners and the success they've had, they keep losing coaches to attrition, right? Guys get promoted and they go somewhere else. And I think the Warriors are no different. I mean, the Warriors coaching tree is very well known, and a guy like Mike Brown had success before he was with the Warriors.
Right.
So for him to come to Golden State and take those few years off as the head coach and to be on the bench as Steve Kerr's right-hand man only lended to his experience. And there's no question as to why the Kings are playing as well as they have. Their first, 40-win season in almost 20 years. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's incredible. He is revered right now in Sacramento, and rightfully so. D in the chat writes that Wiggs rumor is wild if it's true. We don't really deal in the rumor business, but I am curious to know what you're referring to. So follow that up in the chat if you want. We'll talk about Wiggins in just a moment. And also talk about Draymond Green. There's some new news about him. Not great news. And so much more to talk about because the season's wrapping up. And Niners, Warriors, what is up? Right back at you. Giving a shout out to Dub Nation. The chat is quiet tonight, which is largely because, again, we didn't announce that this was happening, a live show. This is very last minute. First, though, I got to give some love to one of our newer sponsors. And Ryan, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if you try this game out, you might love it as well. I've been having a kick playing Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. It's literally a game on your phone. It's a fantastic time burner that's made a lot of us here Locked On geeked out by our new partner and sponsor, Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. It's a mobile game where you're becoming an NBA GM, you're managing your own basketball franchise, and you're managing every strategic aspect of your team. You're hiring coaches, assistants, you're trading and training players, you're making draft picks. You are in control. You're the Bob Myers of your team, and it is super fun. And Locked On Warriors listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise if you use the promo code Locked On, and try that in all caps as well. Put that in the game store. Again, the promo code is Locked On, all caps in the game store. Make sure to go check it out. To download the game, just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the App Store. That's probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow AP Radio sports reporter Ryan Leong on Twitter at Ryan Leong. Leong is how you spell his last name. In the chat, I'm seeing right here, Kevin Prentice is writing that he's watching James Wiseman play at this moment. Wiseman's been playing fantastic. Real quick, Ryan, while I have you, and I'm going to bring you back on, man. You're being a solid guest immediately. What are your thoughts on that trade, man? Did you like it? Are you like a lot of people who are now seeing Wiseman light it up for the Pistons and thinking to yourself, what the hell did the Warriors just do? Your thoughts on the James Wiseman trade, man? Was it smart? Was it a bad move? What do you think?
I think it was actually an okay move just because I think financially the Warriors came out on top. You know, they get a guy back in Peyton the second, even though he's hurt right now. He should be back hopefully in time for the playoffs. And it just looked like they were going to keep Peyton no matter what. Just Wiseman was set to make too much money for too little experience that he's had. Now, you can almost say that the Warriors just took such a huge flyer on a guy like Wiseman in the first place. How many games did he play in college? Was it 1 or 2 games that he played?
Three total.
3 games. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy to think that a guy who played only 3 basketball games in college becomes the number 2 draft pick, right? I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, it really is insane. And okay, maybe, if you're really a fatalist and you want to be super negative, that maybe someday he'll turn into Robert Parrish because that's who the Warriors had a long time ago, right?
Right.
But, I mean, short of that, I don't think you want the Warrior fans to think that James Wiseman is the second coming of Joe Barry Carroll. So you don't want either one of those two opposites. But I'm hoping that Wiseman has a good career. I just think that it just didn't fall in line for him. The Warriors absolutely sucked that opening year at Chase Center. A lot of things didn't happen well for the Warriors. Curry got hurt 5 games into the season. They ended up getting D'Angelo Russell, who was the ultimate, ball hog, just bad player to be on your team. Yep. And he turned into Andrew Wiggins. So look at the upside they got. I mean, it worked out so well for the Warriors, but who'd have thought that they would have been so bad that first year at Chase Center? And people kind of almost forget that that's kind of one of the reasons why, a guy like Wiseman might have been the future for the Warriors. And then it turns out the Warriors end up winning the title again a lot sooner than people I think would have thought. And so he becomes expendable. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah, and right now, James Wiseman in a game that's out of reach. They're playing the Nuggets, losing that game 119-100. Oh, it's a final now. So they lost that game. But Wiseman in 30 minutes shot 50% from the field, 14 points, 9 rebounds. I just don't understand how Kerr couldn't have figured out how to use Wiseman for even like 5 to 10 minutes a game, just as a big. In a game last night, for example, where they were killed on the glass, they were clearly getting beaten up inside. You couldn't use Wiseman. I mean, when he played in that Christmas game against the Grizzlies, I thought he played fine. I didn't.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact they got Gary Payton the second back. That I love that he's back on the team, and all indications are he is going to come back before the season ends and plays. So let's hope that that strategy works out with Gary Payton the second. I want to play this soundbite from Draymond Green last night because he is in the news today. He was issued his 16th technical last night, and 16 means you're suspended a game. After the game last night, though, this was Dre's sentiments on that tech.
Yeah, I expect something to change. I got one tech this year because a ref yelled at me, and I said, if I yell at you, I'm going to get fined. I got a tech for it. So I think something will change because if that's a tech, then every word you say on the court is a tech. So we'll see.
Yeah, we saw, and you got the tech held up. He's going to miss Friday's game against the Hawks. Which is really one side of the coin of the argument was, he was already towing a fine line. He had to behave absolutely perfect. I thought that was not intentional. I thought he just literally just flicked the ball and it happened to hit Russell Westbrook's head. What did you think about that, man? And how do you think that's going to impact the game tomorrow against the Hawks?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, as you know, Draymond's always under the microscope, and he's been under the microscope for several years now. So he really shouldn't be surprised that, things don't go his way pretty much ever. As far as the game tomorrow, I don't think it should affect the Warriors. Again, but I could be wrong. I mean, at this point, especially, I would say this much. You know what? I think it could actually be bad because if the Warriors were at home, then I'd say maybe it's not a big deal because of, again, how well they play at home. But given how badly they've been on the road, and this would be a 10th straight loss if they lose tomorrow at Atlanta. So on the road. So that's just nuts. But yeah, I mean, they need his presence. I mean, the Warriors are at a point where they really need a guy like Draymond, who really is, of course, as you know. I mean, he's the Kickstarter, right? I mean, he helps light the match, and he gets things going. If you don't have that spark plug on your team, I mean, this Warriors team really needs him and Steph and Clay. As you know, when you have these guys all working together, they're like a well-oiled machine. And you take any of those parts away, that engine struggles to perform.
No, I'm totally with you. Klay Thompson really disappointed in last night's game. I pointed that out on the post-game show last night, a rather contentious show because we had people coming in the chat hating on Moody. I made it very clear. I'm not accepting Moody hate. You're distracting me from the show also doing that. But some people, despite the fact that Moses Moody rarely, if ever, plays, seems to have judgment on him. I say let the kid play. Never mind the fact he's 20 years old. He's a kid. I wanted to see him actually play real minutes before we cast judgment on him. I don't know how you feel. What are your sentiments on Moses Moody, Ryan? Like want to see 15 to 20 minutes. The more Jonathan Kuminga, his fellow draft mate from last year, the more Jonathan Kuminga plays, the better the Warriors are. In fact, I have the stat I'm going to reveal in just a second about Kuminga, how it's statistically proven that the more he plays, the better they are. I think if Moses Moody got a similar run, if he got just a chance, he would deliver. He's never given a chance. Steve Kerr, I think you and I would agree, is very impatient when it comes to giving young players a long leash. That has been a detriment this year. What are your thoughts on Moody, man? Should he play? Do you understand where Kerr's coming from? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I do get where he's coming from, but I get where you're coming from as well. And I think, in a situation where you've got an able-bodied player and you've got, minutes that are available on the floor, you got to play some of these guys more. And he's a fairly big player. And the Warriors, as we both know, lack size.
Yeah.
So if you got a guy who's got some size, and I think he's got the potential. As I recall, when he got drafted, one of his upsides was the fact that he could get rebounds.
Right.
And I think when you don't give these guys enough playing time, especially when they're young, it affects their confidence. It affects their self-esteem. And I wouldn't say these guys are crestfallen, but I would certainly think they start having doubts about their abilities when they're not given enough time to play on the court.
Dude, you echoed my sentiments exactly. And Bruce Morrow says like Moody's not big. Well, compared to the rest of the Warriors roster, he is. He's 6'6" with a 7'1" wingspan. Kerr is routinely employing lineups where your tallest players are 6'5", 6'6". So, by the Warriors standards, he's not small. And I want to mention this stat real quick. Sorry, that was an accident there. For Jonathan Kuminga, since January 1st, 2023, when Jonathan Kuminga plays 25 or more minutes, the Warriors have a 71.4% win percentage. They win 71% of the time, which would translate to the Warriors being a 59-win team. Now, when Kuminga plays under 20 minutes, like he did last night, he played 19, the Warriors only win 42.9% of their games, translating to them being a 35-win team if you carry that out over 82 games. The point is, I've been saying this. This is one of my taglines. Good things happen when Kuminga plays. Would you agree with that, Ryan? I mean, to me, everything indicates that. But yet, he's still held back on a lot of nights. Like last night, he only played.
Yeah, I think Kerr likes to play some hot hands, and right now, for sure, if you had to look at one guy in the Warriors, although he's not a guy that is a power forward. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo has been the Warriors' like third best scorer. So I would say lately, and given the way he's been playing, it does get tough. I'm not gonna excuse Kerr, but at the same time, I do understand that he's got to manage a roster. Yep. And he's going to play those guys that are his top five, and then he's going to go accordingly with the rest of the team. And I would say this too, as I if I'm not mistaken, please. Jordan Poole is one of the guys that still struggles to come off the bench, right? I mean, since he actually filled in for Curry all the time Curry was gone, was great. But now that he's coming off the bench as the sixth man, it makes it harder for him to adjust to that role and to be just as productive as he was when he was starting.
Dude, I've been saying that a lot on this show, how like clearly he does much better as a starter versus coming off the bench. The splits are so obvious. And yeah, I'm with you, man. I just don't know how they're going to make that work in terms of Jordan Poole coming in as a starter. I don't know who sits, right? But nonetheless, man, yeah, he played good last night. Jordan Poole in 25 minutes last night had 19 points, shot 50% from both the three and from the field. So he actually had a good game last night. And the previous game before that, but you're right. Overall for the season, it has not been great. And Moses Moody, I played the soundbite in the show a lot.
It sucks.
That was his reaction to, having to always stay ready despite not playing minutes. I mean, he expressed very clearly how he feels.
It sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. And I don't blame him. It totally does suck.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot more when we come back. I still want to talk about Stephen Curry and that 50 burger he dropped last night, but it still resulted in a loss, which needs to stop. We're going to talk about that and so much more with Ryan Leong. First, we got a couple sponsors here. First of all, Built Bar. The Built Bar March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff if you tried one of these delicious treats, and now's your time to make it count. If you go to builtmarchmadness.com, you can vote for your favorites and win something as a result of that. Like, for example, I'm going to be voting for chocolate granola. That is my flavor. That's what I love with Built. It's not as chewy as the rest of the bars. It's a little more light, but it still has the 17 grams of protein. It still has just the 4 grams of sugar. It still has the light calorie count of just 130. And look, if you want your flavor to win, just go again to the website, builtmarchmadness.com, to vote for your favorites. And if you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you're going to be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. And not just that, one lucky Locked On fan is going to win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. So run to builtmarchmadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick. Today's show is also, this is a 2 live read break here. Ryan, they knew you were coming, man, and all the sponsors lined up, and I rarely, if ever, have 2 reads in one break. The other one is FanDuel, a new official sponsor of the entire Locked On network. The midway point of the NBA season is here when you consider the postseason, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Nick J writes that he eats 2 Built Bars a day in addition to a salad. You lost 200 pounds in 14 months. I call BS on that, but if that's true, absolutely incredible. 200 pounds, man. What were you up to?
I was going to say, if he's on Twitter, he should be tweeting some photos out.
That's incredible.
I'd like to see that. And hey, props to him, man. That's awesome.
Let's listen to Stephen Curry. I didn't get a chance to play this from last night's game. He detailed, again, Steph had just a marvelous game. His second 50-point game of the season, both resulting in losses, which is an issue. And here was Steph after the game talking about why the Warriors lost to the Clippers.
Helps I got stronger to be able to take that contact and again be extremely efficient inside of the 3-point line too.
That was Steph hitting his head on the mic right there for that.
There was periods in the game where we fouled too much. Tonight is offensive rebounds. That gave them plenty of second chances. They're already a talented team. You know, what Kawhi and PG can do offensively, especially. So if you give them extra opportunities, it's never going to be a good thing. They had 16 offensive rebounds. And they got to the free throw line 32 times to our 15. Like, you know, we're undersized, I think, based on guys that are out. So you have to play bigger than, you know, than what our stature is, and we just didn't put together enough of the stretch of that where, you know, I think we defensively played, you know, good enough, as crazy as it sounds. It's just when you foul and they get easy free throws or easy points at the free throw line, and then you give offense rebounds and kick out threes and stuff like that, it's tough on the road, no matter how well you play on the other end.
Talking about them all season long, 69, 70 games in, why haven't they been able to fix?
Tough question just because you're trying. I mean, doing everything we can to mindful of it.
Oh, I don't know what happened there. I don't know what the question was at the end there, but you heard Steph mention they were undersized. There was another attribution. I couldn't find it. I was looking for it before the show started, where someone asked Steph about the confidence of the team, and Steph said, my confidence is fine. But he wouldn't speak for the rest of the team. I don't know how you would really interpret that. Ryan, your response, your reaction to that and the performance, and what do you think the Warriors need to change in the Hawks game tomorrow night so that Steph and the Warriors can end this 9-game losing streak on the road, or 10, whatever it is?
Well, it'll be 10 if they lose tomorrow. They need to get better production out of somebody else besides him. I mean, you know, in a way, Steph, even though he's 35 years old, he's playing like a young Michael Jordan. Now, if you remember Jordan in the days before Scottie Pippen arrived, Jordan was losing a lot of games.
True.
I mean, he's scoring like 30, 40 points a game and losing. And watching Steph last night was like watching Jordan without Scottie Pippen. And it was like, it's so frustrating because it's like, you know, what a way. I mean, basically, and not to sound mean, but it's a wasted performance because he does so much statistically, and he just has these great highlight plays. I'm sitting and watching the game with my mom and my stepdad. We're both loving watching the way Curry's playing. And then we just see it all fall apart in the fourth quarter because the Warriors just couldn't hold their own. I mean, they just had nobody else to help Steph out, and it showed in the box score. I mean, when your second leading scorer is 19 points off the bench from Jordan Poole, you should actually consider yourself lucky the Warriors only lost by 8 points when you think about it.
Fair.
Right? I mean, that's bad. You got to have a guy scoring 20 to 25 in addition to what Curry did, at least. I mean, that might have made the difference right there. And the fact that you're not getting more scoring out of, I mean, and again, I know Looney's a rebound machine, but he only had 6 points. I mean, you gotta expect more from Looney than that. I mean, hopefully he can double that and have 12 in the next game. Because a guy who's a center, even in the modern NBA that we see with that's all about 3-pointers and shots from deep and all this guard play, your center should be giving you double-digit points every night. There's no reason for not to have at least 10 points from your center.
The Warriors are lacking in size. There's no disputing that. And they're going to be lacking even more tomorrow with Draymond Green missing the game because of that 16th tech. It's a mandatory 1-game suspension. I saw some people on Twitter mentioning Nerlens Noel's. The Brooklyn Nets signed him to a 10-day deal. That 10-day deal expired. He's now available. You and I did some research before the show started regarding his eligibility, and he is in fact eligible. The Warriors could pick him up. So that would be one player I would not mind the Warriors adding. DeMarcus Cousins is another one that I don't think there's any realistic possibility, but I don't think he would hurt the team. They're obviously hurting. Is it, in your opinion, Ryan, like if the Warriors don't make any moves this year, if this is the final roster, and let's say Wiggins comes back, let's say Gary Payton II comes back, and they're healthy, are they going to repeat as world championships as world champions? I'm sorry. Like, are you confident in this team? What are your thoughts?
I'm not right now, unfortunately, because of, again, their inability to win on the road. I mean, you've got to win a number of road games. That's why it was, when I asked Kerr that question in the pregame a couple days ago, he made a good answer, which is true. It's like, he's been on teams that have sucked at home and on the road, but not when it's like basically the opposite disparity. The Warriors have 7 home losses right now. So it's so mind-boggling. But the team, when they play the way they do, and again, given the fact that they only have seven home losses, they played not the greatest home basketball either. I mean, they find ways to grind it out,
right,
and win late. But it's really an odd recipe for success, and that's what the Warriors are actually lacking. And to answer your question, and so I don't know. They just got to figure out a better way. But I just think with so many moving parts and nobody really being, as this podcast is called, locked in. They're not locked in. Locked on. They're not locked on. They're not. They're not locked on or locked in, as Steph would like to say. And that's really troubling me because, again, after years of covering the Warriors and usually seeing that they're either successful or not, it's been consistent. And this team just isn't. You really don't know what you're going to get, at least, and especially on the road. You're just seeing so much inconsistency. You're going to see a great performance from Steph. But the rest of the team, I think the rest of the team, unfortunately, and I can see why they do this. They probably are in awe of his performance. So, unfortunately, they end up doing too much watching instead of playing. The term they say in hockey. You know what they say in hockey? They say in hockey, if too many guys aren't on the bus, that they're passengers. Too many passengers on the bus right now for the Warriors.
And in the chat, some people going off your Steph Jordan analogy were saying, well, Klay Thompson is the Pippen, and Draymond Green like it. And you're right, and Draymond Green is the Rodman, but you're right. Klay did not play like the Pippen last night. He just had a bad game. And then Draymond, it just wasn't enough. They couldn't beat the Clippers. You're right. This season has just been weird.
Yeah,
weird. It's been nonsensical. My feeling on it is that it's happened this way for largely because of the fact that you do have, and this is where I really love that you're on the show, because you're at every Warriors home game. You're in the media room. You are a journalist, especially in the sense that you're asking questions, like you're in tune with what's going on. My feeling is that a huge reason for the struggle this year is that there's a divide. There's a divide between what Steve Kerr wants on his roster versus who Bob Myers and or Joe Lacob feels should be on the roster, right? And the evidence is there based on the construction of the roster itself. They didn't bring back any veterans. They clearly, the front office clearly felt that the lottery picks were ready to pick up the burden. Kerr clearly doesn't believe that. What are your thoughts, man, on what's going on there? I mean, and adding to that, Bob Myers is gonna be a free agent after the season. Steve Kerr is going to be a lame duck coach after the season, which kind of, in a sense, makes him a free agent as well. What is going on with it, with behind the scenes stuff, man? Like, is there a divide there? What do you think is going to happen next year? Give us your thoughts on all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, of course, I'm not privy to know what goes on behind closed doors. But
no one is, yeah.
I think just given the fact that everybody's getting older, and it's kind of like a TV show. When you have a TV show that first starts on the air, everybody's getting paid a certain salary, and of course, as the seasons go on, the salaries increase. You ever see what the guy? I know it's kind of a convoluted example, but the cast of Friends, I believe, in the last few seasons, were each making like $1 million per episode or something like that. It was something ridiculous. Well, look at the Warriors right now, right? You got most of your money locked up in Steph, Klay, and Draymond, right? So that doesn't leave a lot of room for other people, and that ends up being the reason why the Warriors have younger players or guys that want to prove themselves, like a Dante DiVincenzo who's on a 2-year contract. Although I believe he has a player option, right? So
He does.
knowing the way he's playing right now, he's probably gone after this season.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree too. It sucks, but you're right. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the Warriors' dilemma right now is the fact that everybody's getting older, guys are getting paid, and everybody moves on, and you can't keep what you once had. And that's kind of the beauty of sports. I mean, sports, like you said, when you're talking about the sponsor that we have at Ultimate Basketball GM and trying to, I think maybe more people that listen to this podcast should probably play that game and realize how difficult it is to do what the Warriors have been doing, and that is trying to maintain this dynasty that they've had, because it's almost like building a sandcastle. And the sand's not going to stay put, right? It's just gonna eventually erode, and yet the Warriors are trying to find ways to keep patching things together to keep things afloat. And I just think as time goes by, this may be the last really good year for the Warriors. Who knows? I mean, things could really start changing in the next few years because Curry's not going to always be able to keep this production. It's
right.
Come a time where he's going to hit the decline of his career, and I hate to say this, but the I word's going to come into play even more, and that's injuries. I mean, look what happened to poor Andre Iguodala, right? Iguodala finally gets back, and he ends up breaking his wrist against the Suns. He's done for the rest of this year.
Oh, my neck, my back, my neck and my back. Oh.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, okay.
No, it's funny, but I'm sure Andre is probably pretty bummed out, as he is, of course. His alma mater got bumped today by Princeton in the NCAA tournament. Hey, that's why they call it March Madness, right? But
But Ryan, how do you justify, for example, like the team not bringing back the things that make me go, no relation to the song is why not Damian Lee? Why not Juan Toscano Anderson? Like they would have come back on a veteran minimum. Like why move on from those two? Like that
is a little puzzling. And I'll tell you right now, that's why what was it? I guess the other day when the Suns were in at Chase Center, there was a little bit of a scuffle there, right at the end of the game with Damian Lee, and I think there's some bitterness there. No question. He was delighted. I don't know if you saw, when they were there here the first time and Damian Lee got his ring, the Suns beat the Warriors in that game. He ends up posing with his ring post game outside the locker room in the interview room with us. He was like doing like this. He's like taking all these photos. He's got his sunglasses on. It was some of the funniest things I've ever seen. But I'll tell you, there's also a reason why a lot of guys perform well in sports, because you want to talk about holding grudges. Athletes, I think, are some of the most overly sensitive people you can imagine. Okay. And if you do anything to just, poke the bear, per se, they're not going to forget. Okay. I mean, athletes are just built that way. You know what? I guess in some ways you could say it's being petty, but at the same time, that's what fuels their competitive fire. So, I think I know for sure, and he's not going to say it, but Damian Lee's probably really ticked off that the Warriors didn't keep him. And every time,
I would be too. I would be too, man.
Right. So every single time he's on the court, he wants to prove it to them.
I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's just a mystery. Well, anything you want to promote before we go? I know you obviously you produce reports for AP Radio. What else? Anything else you want to promote? I know you write for a website too.
Yeah. Me and a couple of colleagues have a website. We need to produce more content, but we do podcasts as well, and that's BayAreaSportsRap.com. So shout out to my friends Marco Ukalovic and Lowell Tuckerman for captaining that website and having me be a contributor for them. So yeah, I'm happy to be reporting for them and also AP Radio and just being able to be part of the sports scene, because we are very fortunate here in the Bay Area. I mean, with the exception of a few teams, we do really well here, and each one of the teams, for the different sports have had a lot of great success. And the Warriors didn't at first, but ever since the 2015 season, I mean, they just keep they're either title winners or title contenders.
It's impressive. It is impressive what they've done. And again, they play the Hawks tomorrow night. Draymond Green will not be available. It is a damn must win, man, because right now, if you look at the standings, the Warriors are in 6th, the game behind the Clippers, and only 1 game ahead of the Timberwolves and Mavericks, only a game and a half ahead of the Thunder, only 2 ahead of the Lakers, only a 2.5 ahead of the Jazz and the Pelicans. they got to win some of these road games, man. These are vitally important. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. You can follow Ryan Leong on Twitter at Ryan Leong. I could talk with you for hours, man, but it's a 30-minute show, and I'm breaking that rule almost every day lately.
Okay.
We'll be back at this soon. Ryan, thank you so much, brother.
And lastly, Cyrus, just for you, I had to wear my old school Warriors starter jacket, the real thing. This is not one of those this is not one of the new starters they're making. This is the old school Chris Mullin, Chris Webber era starter jacket. So good for you,
dude. I love that era, man. That's what. And starter, are they making jackets still? Because as a kid, I grew up. Those were your status symbol at school.
Yeah.
Like in my elementary, junior high. I don't know if high school was, but junior high, elementary, man. If you weren't wearing a starter jacket, you were not one of the cool kids. It was plain and simple.
Yeah, so real quick, the short story of that is Carl Banks, the former New York Giants linebacker, now runs the company, but it's under a different branding. The jackets aren't USA made. I'll leave it at that. And I just don't think they're anywhere near the quality that these ones are in. And if you can find these on like eBay or somewhere, even if it's not the Warriors, buy it. You're not going to regret it. These things are almost 40 years old. They're 30 to 40 years old. And look, they look brand new. They're still well made.
Yeah, you're selling, man. All right, bro. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on, dude. I haven't been able to go to that many games lately just because I rescued this dog that has very serious behavioral issues, and he has massive separation anxiety. So I can't I got to find a babysitter for him so we can start coming to games again.
Yeah.
But
only
you're
a few
there,
left, so I'll see you out there.
Yeah, y'all, I'll bring you back on the show. So we'll do this again soon. Thanks so much for coming on, man. Thank you for everyone for joining us again. This was just an impromptu show. We went live, and thanks to everyone for the chat for keeping it professional. And we'll be back at this. Let's go Warriors. Next show will be after tomorrow's game. I don't know if Kylan's going to join me tomorrow or Saturday, because I'm going to do a show after tomorrow's game and after Saturday's game. We'll figure that out. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. That's where we announce show times and co-hosts and guests and all that good stuff. Although I didn't today. Sorry about that. But yeah, thank you again, Ryan. Thank you for everyone. And we'll see you soon. Go Warriors. Later.